Good evening, everyone. Thank y'all so much for being here today. Thank you for being a part of our Facebook Live. This is our very first one, and I can tell you, I cannot think of any better program to have our very first Facebook Live than our PROM campaign. PROM is Please Return on Monday. And I tell you, this is a joint collaboration, a joint partnership between the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services, the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, through the Mississippi Highway Patrol. So guys, you're talking about a really good partnership that's going to show you the full circle of consequences should your teen driver choose to drink and drive, text and drive, or not wear their seatbelt. I'm Chris Howard. I'm the Executive Director here at the Mississippi Department of Rehab. And what we do is we provide individualized services to Mississippians with disabilities all across our state. And what we do is we help those individuals live more independently at home and in the workplace. So as we look at this program and as we partner with MHP, again, it's such a great opportunity to show that full circle of consequences of things that could happen. The Mississippi Department of Health has some stats out there, and what they show is that the leading cause of head injuries and brain injuries and spinal cord injuries are related to traffic accidents. So if you're watching today, get your family, get your friends, get other teen drivers you may know, and have them log on to our Facebook page and watch this next hour, because I promise you it's going to really show you some powerful stuff and really make you think as you get in the car and celebrate this prom season. So again, thank y'all for being here today. Thank you for being a part of Facebook. Remember, prom is Please Return on Monday. Thank you.
I'm Colonel Randy Ginn with the Mississippi Highway Patrol. The statistics of teen fatalities in our state is shocking. In 2020, 70 teenagers died in crashes on roadways in Mississippi. That's 70 families in our state who had law enforcement contacting them with the news that their child would not be coming home. This next hour could be one that prevents your family from ever receiving such tragic news. Please stay tuned and join us for prom. Please return on Monday in the same condition you left. Your choices today impact your tomorrow.
Gorgeous.
It was rough. It was the toughest time of my life. I had, like every other 15, 16-year-old kid playing football, you have dreams of playing in college and that kind of a thing. So all of that was over in a matter of seconds.
I was rear-ended by a drunk driver who was clocked at 120 miles an hour. My car was knocked off an embankment down a steep hill, tied around a tree. They found my torso on the floor of the car, legs wrapped around the steering wheel. Only thing holding me together was a seat belt.
I got hit by a drunk driver when I was 16. It broke my neck in 3 places and my back in 4. And I was in the hospital for 2 years, and it took me almost a year to get my hands back.
Hey, I'm Trooper Chase Elkins with the Mississippi Highway Patrol. For the next few minutes, I'd like to talk to you about not only safe driving, but how we can change our whole mindset behind the wheel of a vehicle. Too many times we get behind the wheel of a vehicle and we're oftentimes thinking about ourselves, whether it's a brand new driver or someone that's experienced and has been driving for years and years. We find ourselves behind the wheel of a vehicle doing things that are oftentimes illegal. We would all believe it would be easy to admit that driving fast is considered fun. There's a thrill in driving above the speed limit and driving really fast. And to be honest with you, I enjoy it. Is why I got in law enforcement. One of the reasons, in addition to making a difference, we know that driving fast is fun, and I would be silly to neglect that fact, that it releases dopamine and pushes adrenaline through our bodies. Studies show that whenever we drive fast, our blood pressure rises and different things take place through our body that give us that release. But at the same time, even though it is fun, and it doesn't take a lot to admit that, it's also dangerous. If we look at some of the other traffic statistics and a high rate of fatalities, you go down to wearing seatbelts, and a lot of people believe that they decide they don't want to wear a seatbelt, whether that be for the freedom. People coming, they think that their airbag will do the protection, all the protection that they need, or it's just them in the car and they don't want to get trapped inside a vehicle. But all studies have neglected all of those facts as well. Your airbag's not good in and of itself. It's to work in conjunction with your seatbelt. Studies show that being thrown from a crash, you're 4 to 5 times more likely to die from being ejected from a crash. And as we oftentimes say, well, it's only me and I'm not too much worried about me. But studies also show that a large majority of brain injuries and traumatic injuries come from an unbuckled passenger crashing into a buckled passenger inside the same vehicle. One of the other big things that we've looked at over the years is driving under the influence, and many times that results in a lot of times people, when they get to the point, not only is their mind altered and they're not thinking correctly, but we also get to a place where our pride sets in and we're not too comfortable asking somebody else for a ride when we're old enough to take care of ourselves. If you look at all of these things, they all are in conjunction with dealing with ourself and looking at what I think and what I feel and what I want to do. Texting and driving or distracted driving is no different than the 3 items listed before. Texting and driving is one that is just as selfish a thing that we do. Oftentimes, teenagers especially will get behind the wheel of a vehicle and they'll say, Trooper, you don't know a whole lot about what you're talking about. I'm talented. I know how to text and drive without ever looking at my phone, or I really don't want to miss out on the next text or the next group or the next social event, and I can't wait for the 5 minutes until I get to my next stopping point. But reality says this, that whenever you look down at your phone, whether you're a good driver or not, even if you look down for just 5 quick seconds, driving an average speed of 55 miles an hour, studies show that you travel the distance of a football field, and I don't know about you, but that's a long way to go at 55 miles an hour without my eyes on the road. All of these excuses are really because I don't think it's going to happen to me. So if you would, for the next few seconds, I would like to ask you a question, and the only way that this is going to make an impact on your life is if you'll dig down deep in your heart and answer the question to yourself. You don't have to answer it out loud. You don't have to write us and tell us what it is. You don't have to tell your family. You don't have to tell your friends. But you need to answer the question correctly in your heart. And the question is this: what is it going to take for you to get it? What is it going to take for you to realize that all of these things are selfish desires? What is it going to take for us to realize that really the vast majority of our teens are dying on the highway? In 2019, we lost 41 teenagers in traffic fatalities. In 2020, we lost 70 teenagers in traffic fatalities. In a year in the middle of a pandemic when traffic was virtually not there because people were staying home and they weren't traveling nearly as much, we still increased 21 teenagers losing their lives on the side of the road. You said, man, you seem like you're upset about this. The problem is that oftentimes I'm the one that has to go to the family's house. I have to go to your parents' house and knock on the door and tell them that your child made a selfish decision or your child acted selfishly for even just for a few seconds, and it cost them their lives. What I'd like you to do is you're digging deep and you begin to ask yourself the question, what is it going to take? Is it going to have to happen to me? Is it going to have to happen to my best friend? I want you to think of one person in your world, one person in your life that has really invested in you, somebody that's poured into your heart, that's helped you to get to where you're at today, somebody that you would say you love unconditionally. somebody that you say you lay your life down on the line for. I want you to think of that one person, and whoever that might be. Again, you don't have to share it with anybody. Just store it in your heart. And as you gather that one person's name and remembrance and thoughts of that one person in your life, I want you to think of this. How would you feel if that one person was no longer here? And really, that person would feel that if you drove selfishly. And so what is it going to take for us to realize returning on Monday is not just a prom season thing. Returning on Monday is 52 weeks out of the year, 365 days. It's not just on Mondays, it's Sunday through Saturday. And the deal is this, that it shouldn't have to take a tragic event in any one of our lives for you to get the picture. It shouldn't take my family hurting. It shouldn't take me disappointing the people in my life that have really poured so much in. It shouldn't take any of those thoughts for me to get there. Sad thing is that we know why we drive fast. We know that why people drive without seatbelts. We know why they text and drive. We know why people drive under the influence. But the question now is what is it going to take for you after you've chosen your person? I want to tell you a quick story and a reality check of how these things happen and how they take place. About 7 years ago, there was a young man that got misplaced from his family, and after about a month and a half of being displaced, the father, the mother, and the sibling found out that the child at 5 years old was several states away after being abducted, and they made a trip some thousands of miles away to locate their family member, to their brother or their child. They picked him up, and with such emotion and such joy, they wrapped their arms around their little 5-year-old brother and their 5-year-old son, and man, they just had such a good time. They thought to make up for the past month and a half, they would spend a little time on vacation, so they took 3 days for themselves before returning back to reality. On the third day, they began their journey home, remember, over 1,000 miles, and they began their journey through the state of Mississippi. And in his excitement, the driver of the vehicle looked down at a phone simply to respond and read a text message. Had no ill intention, no bad heart, had plenty of reasons to drive right. He had his number 1, he had his number 2, and he had his number 3 right there in the car with him. He had plenty of reason to drive right. But he looked down at a cell phone to read a text message, and before he could respond, he ran into the back of a stopped 18-wheeler on the interstate, traveling at interstate speed. 3 of the individuals lost their lives that day. The 5-year-old young man survived. The 5-year-old boy survived, but his parents and his sibling lost their life because of a text message, because somebody else thought, man, it ain't going to happen to me. My question is this, is it going to take something that tragic to happen in your life before you realize that, listen, whether it's accepted or not, whether it's approved or not, whether I get caught or not, whether I get made fun of or not, regardless of any of those things, I'm not worried about everybody else. I need to be worried about me. Because at the end of the day, in 10 and 15 years from now, who's going to be there to answer for the actions that I did? I am. And so I have to worry about me. And so I want to encourage you tonight to not drive for yourself and not to get behind the wheel of a vehicle selfishly. I don't want you to get behind the wheel of a vehicle focused on you and what you can do and what you have done and what talent you do have and what talent you don't have. But instead, when you get behind the wheel of a vehicle, think about that number 1 person and drive for them. You see, because if we drive for them and we're not only driving for ourselves, then we get to a point and we get to a place where now I'm driving because I don't want to let them down. Now I'm driving because I don't want them to feel the feelings that I would feel if I lost them. Now I'm going to drive for them, and I'm going to give them everything that I've got. I'm going to make sure that as soon as I get in the vehicle, I put my seatbelt on. I'm going to make sure that whenever I get in a situation, in a position where alcohol may be a contributing circumstance or it may be available there, that I don't partake in those things, that I don't get myself in a position, because the reality is I'm telling you, the decisions to drive impaired, the decisions to drive distracted, the decisions to drive unbelted, and the decisions to drive faster than the speed limit, those decisions start now. They happen long before they actually happen. The decisions happen long before the actions happen. You can decide tonight how much you really care about the person, your number 1, your person that's impacted you. You can decide whether or not you want them to feel the emotion that 70 families of teenagers last year had to fill from highway crashes. You can decide that. My question is this, and my encouragement is would you please drive for them rather than driving for you? Change your focus behind the wheel of a vehicle from what can I do to what can I help or what can I prevent. Not every time in a traffic crash do they result in a fatality. Not every single time, every traffic crash that we work and that we're involved in results in a death notification and a funeral and a broken family. Sometimes they result in a life-changing injury. Sometimes they result in a new element in life that you have to learn to live with. Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services has done a fine job taking care of those that have been placed in these situations after being involved in crashes and many other obstacles in life. Ms. Allison Louder is going to share with you just a little bit more about how Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services can help you in that event.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Allison Lowther with the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services. Thank you for joining us tonight. I want to tell you just a little bit about our agency and what we do. We are the state agency that provides services to Mississippians with disabilities. Some of those services can be vocational assistance, and that can be whether you need to gain some skills or retain some skills for work. Our Office of Special Disability Programs, we provide support and services when you have more severe disabilities that allow you to remain independent in your home and in your community. Now, I am the coordinator of the Traumatic Brain Injury Spinal Cord Injury Trust Fund program, and it's this program that is bringing you the PROM Safety Campaign. Now, normally when we go into schools and we're speaking to the high school students, we do a little exercise with them. I'm going to modify that a little bit tonight. So if you're watching and if you're in high school, do this little exercise with me. I want you to think about what your life is like right now. What is going on in your world? You may be home tonight studying for a big test tomorrow. You may have just gotten home from baseball practice or softball practice. Girls, you may be going shopping. You got to get that prom dress. Guys, have you been fitted for your tux yet? Or you may just be planning a big weekend of everybody getting together and hanging out. So let's jump into the future now. Let's go 5-10 years into the future. What do you think your world's going to be like? Have you graduated college? Got your degree? Got that dream job? Maybe you're engaged to your high school sweetheart, or you're already married and got a house full of kids. Maybe you're a professional athlete, or you're a well-known, very famous celebrity. The point of this exercise is for you to realize that every choice that you make today can affect your tomorrow. And it may be little simple choices, but they will have some kind of effect on your tomorrow. Now, we do realize that sometimes what happens to you in life is just what life throws at you. You can't control it. But oftentimes what happens is a direct result of a decision that you made. A decision to text and drive, a decision to drink and drive, a decision not to wear your seatbelt. So we at the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services want to let you know that if something happens to you and now you are living with a disability, we are here to help you. But your life may be very different now. Instead of walking down the aisle at your wedding, you may have to roll down the aisle. Instead of that dream job, it'd still be attainable, but there are going to have to be some special accommodations that go with that. Your dream house, you may not be able to move out from your parents' home now because they may have to be there to help you with your daily activities. Now, it's prom season in Mississippi, and we want you to have a great time, but we still want you to make some really, really good choices. Please return on Monday in the same condition that you left. Make some great memories. Let's just have some smart choices that go along with it. Now, it's my honor to introduce our next speaker. He has a very powerful message for you, and actually his story is a result of a decision that someone else made. So please, let me introduce to you, you're going to really enjoy this, Dwight Owens.
My name is Dwight Owens. motivational speaker and author of Still Standing. Yes, I'm a victim. I'm in this chair due to someone else's negligence, due to someone else's selfishness, due to someone else choosing to drive drunk. Miss Allison was right. The choices you make today can and will impact your tomorrow. You deserve to live a full life. Choices are power. I heard a good friend say in the Delta that none of us were born winners or losers, but we were all born choosers. The power is in your hands. Now, some of you guys out there, I was a student once. I've heard the lingo, let's turn up and do all this other stuff. Well, we're here to help you turn that down a little bit. We're going to turn that down a little bit because we want you to take control of your life. When you woke up today, someone was breathing their last breath. I don't want anything happening to you or any one of you guys ending up in the chair like I sit here today. I don't want you ending up like me. If you can prevent it, if you can help it. But I know for myself that a disability doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what you look like. It doesn't care how much money you have. It doesn't care about any of that stuff. It doesn't care who your parents are. Doesn't care what kind of car you drive. Doesn't care what color you are. Anything, a disability can happen to anybody. Can happen to anybody. Who am I? They say I have a disability. I say differently, but those that know me know that there's no diss in my ability. See, they say I roll with a certain amount of swag. What do we do to make each other better? I ask myself that all the time. Who am I? I'm a humanitarian. I'm a person that heavily believes in service. I chose not to just sit around in self-pity. I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something. I can relate to a lot of you guys. Everything wasn't handed to me growing up. I didn't have a lot of things that other kids had, but we made do. I didn't have the Jordans, the J's. The only J's I knew of was Jordache. We grew up poor, and I tell everybody all the time, we didn't just grow up poor, we grew up poor because we couldn't afford the OOR. So it's just poor. 1994, when I was in the 6th grade, I remember getting a phone call from my grandmother. My grandmother called and told my siblings and I that my dad had just been run over, had been hit by a car. Not thinking that it was anything serious, we got on the school bus as usual and we approached the center of Hot Coffee, Mississippi. Real community. And as we were on the bus and we passed through the center of Hot Coffee, we saw a crowd of people on the outside of that store. My mom was in that crowd. And my mom came out and tried to stop the school bus. And I remember that just as if it was yesterday. My siblings and I, we got off the school bus. And we entered that crowd. And we found out something. My dad hadn't been run over. Someone had put a gun to his head, pulled the trigger, and threw him out on the highway. And I'm going somewhere with this. As a 6th grader, I had to see that. As a 6th grader, I just witnessed my dad after he was murdered. As a 6th grader, my life was just turned upside down. And I say that to say we have all these excuses that we tell ourselves. We create these excuses in our minds on why we do certain things, why we want to relate to the bottle, why we want to get involved with substance abuse and those type things. So continue to follow me. After the murder of my father, I was so determined to make it. So determined to make it that I was addicted to my grades. I was addicted to success. So I went to Collins High School and I graduated as one of the top of my class. I also excelled in sports. I wanted to do something. And after high school, I went to the University of Southern Mississippi where I majored in education. And after college, I started teaching at Laurel High School. Taught there for a year. Then my dream job opened up being a teacher and football coach at my alma mater at Collins. So excited to learn from some of the same coaches and teachers that encouraged me when I was in high school. School was going to start on August 8, 2005. That was a Monday. August 5th, 2005, that Friday, my life changed. That Friday, as I prepared to go to my classroom and get my classroom ready for the students to come in that Monday, I was railroaded by a drunk driver. clocked at over 100 miles an hour. They found my torso on the floor of the car, my legs wrapped around the steering wheel, a seatbelt holding me, my body basically bent and lifeless, all because of a choice that somebody made that they didn't have to make. So you see what I'm saying when I say there's power in a choice. A choice that they didn't have to make. I sustained several injuries. I broke all of my ribs. My liver was found lodged into my chest. I tore both shoulders. There was liver damage, kidney damage, brain trauma, punctured lungs, couldn't breathe on my own, had to be placed on life support, back was broken, spinal cord severed, which means it was cut in half, leading to paralysis in this wheelchair, all because of a choice that somebody made that they didn't have to make. Do you see the selfishness in that? Do you see? As a matter of fact, I can remember that day. And I can remember the impact. And I can remember being in that car. And I can remember looking at my hands and seeing blood dripping down from my hands. Dripping down from my face to my hands. And saying, somebody help me. And after that, everything went dark. And I coded. And when I coded, and we all know what that means. It means my heart stopped. It means I was literally dead in that car. And when I stopped, when it stopped, it took me to a place of peace. A place so bright that I can't even explain it. And all of a sudden, my dad appeared before me along with other family members that passed on before him. And my dad said, son, everything's going to be okay. So after he said that, he along with the other family members walked away toward an opening in this lit place and they disappeared. Not knowing what to do, I decided to follow them. But before I got through that opening, I woke in the hospital with a doctor holding a light above me, and I overheard him say, we got him back. So that let me know right then that I had a purpose. But it's not just me. Every one of you out there listening, you have a purpose. And you should take that purpose seriously. Value your life to the point where you're not going to get involved in these things. Value your life to that point. And why do I know that you have a purpose? Because you're the only person in this world created like you. There's no other you out there. So that lets me know that you're irreplaceable. That lets me know that you're more than enough just by yourself. As a matter of fact, I coded again in that hospital, and this time was different. This time my family was told that I was deceased. So I can imagine my mom in the waiting room panicking. I can imagine the chaos that was going on in the hospital. But someone came in there, and a miracle happened. A miracle happened, and I'm still here today. I'm still here today. I hurt 24/7. I'm hurting right now. And those out there with spinal cord injuries, they can tell you. You may know somebody in a wheelchair with a spinal cord injury. They can tell you the pain never stops. But I continue to smile because nothing is going to steal my joy. So I tell people all the time, don't ever feel sorry for me because I'm full of joy. I will always smile. I smile when I think about where I could have been and where I am now. I smile when I think about all the surgeries. I smile when I think about being given so much blood that I could taste it. I smile when I think about my fever being so high that I had to pour ice over my entire body. Thinking about people coming in the room, putting their hands under my nose, checking to see if I'm still breathing. And I can remember that. Imagine being on life support and you can't respond to the outside world. You're in this dark place, but you can hear everything around you. You can hear when people will come into the room, wondering if you're still breathing, so they will put their hands under my nose. Imagine doing that. All because of a choice that somebody made that they didn't have to make. They didn't have to make that choice. But don't feel invincible to anything. When you go to a graveyard, I know when you're young, you feel invincible. But when I go to a graveyard, I see many different grave sizes out there. And we hear stories all the time about things happening to people. Don't wait till it's too late. Don't wait till it's too late. I realize that I'm physically paralyzed. I can't walk. I can't walk. No one has to tell me that. I live it every day. But you can be paralyzed without being in a wheelchair. You can be paralyzed by your circumstances. You can be paralyzed through anger. You can be emotionally paralyzed. And all of that stuff, if I had the choice, I'd rather stay right here in this chair. Because no matter how you think your situation may be, there's always someone worse. I want you all you guys that's watching, I want you to do something with me. I want you to breathe in. I want you to breathe out. Oh, what a blessing. You know, somebody out there can't do that. Somebody out there has to wear an oxygen tank to help them do that. But you don't. Embrace that. We blink our eyes all the time and we don't even think about it. But there's somebody out there that no longer has vision, and they have to think about it all the time. All of the time. So I'm happy that everything that I've been through, I know it's tough for you to understand, but I'm happy that my wounds were turned to wisdom, my pain turned into purpose. People sometimes ask me if I get mad and wonder why this happened to me. I say, why not? I found the reason I was born. But that doesn't mean that I want it to happen to you. Because I know how tough life can be. I know how tough life can be. But I found my purpose. And everybody, as I said before, everybody out there has one. This guy from the small community of hot coffee was on the same stage as Al Roker, on the same stage as Ruby D, on the same stage as the Bush family, all toward me for me and my efforts, my purpose. Invited to the home of Mayor Bloomberg, getting a thank you on video from Mrs. Obama. His glory, when there's a girl reaching out to me that doesn't want to live anymore, and God gives me the answer to give that teen new hope, that's my purpose. When there was a young man that was just in an accident and became paralyzed, he asked me to lead that person to new independence and joy, that's my purpose. But everything I did right here in this wheelchair. No excuses. No excuses, everybody. Despite the wheelchair, I'm so blessed. Have everything I need. I drive everywhere I need to go. And that's because of these wonderful people from the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services that provide things like this. And I'm able to do so many things because of them. There's no way I would be where I am right now without those services. So despite the wheelchair, I don't like to say I'm independent. I like to say I'm interdependent because we all need somebody. Doesn't matter what your level is. I have a daughter who was born on 12/12/12. I have a wonderful wife. And as I tell everybody all the time, remain confident in who you are because you're the only person created like you. So when I saw the woman I wanted to date, I just rolled up to her. I put this wheelchair on park, and she became my wife. And if she's watching today, she know I still got it. She know I still got it. But as for me, I'm going to always continue to rejoice and continue to smile. I smile because I'm still here. I smile because I'm free. I live with a no excuse attitude. I'm still standing despite the disability label. I'm still standing despite the wheelchair. I'm still standing despite multiple surgeries and doctors believing I wouldn't make it. Despite all that. Despite that. You're never alone in your thoughts or your insecurities. Everybody has some type of imperfection. People that are tall want to be short. People that are short want to be tall. People that are big want to be small. People that are small want to be big. All of us. But I want you to understand your value. And if you just understand who you are as an individual, then you'll be okay. If I had a $100 bill and I wanted to give it to every viewer out there, you would want that money. If I balled it up, you would still want it. If I was able to stomp on it, you would still want it. The reason you would still want it, because even if I did those things, that money still holds its value. Some of you guys are going to go through life. You're going to feel like you've been balled up. You're going to feel like you've been drugged through the mud. You're going to feel like nobody cares. But no matter what you go through, just like that money, your value remains the same. And you should never forget that. You should never forget that. And that should be your motivation to be the best that you can be. Being great. Being great. We get too caught up in what someone else thinks. But I'm here to tell you today that you're unique. You're somebody. You're somebody. No excuses. I believe in you. The choices you make will follow you for a lifetime. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. Your life is your personal message to the world. What are you going to do with it? I love you. I believe in you. MDRS believes in you. MHP believes in you, because look what they're bringing together. But none of that matters if you don't believe in yourself. We tend to make a lot of excuses in life, whether that's growing up hard or having things happen to us. One of those things, and some of those things, as I said before, we use it as a cop-out to get engaged in alcohol and substance abuse and things like that. But I want you to be different, because being a beast means you can stand on your own. Being a beast means you know that it doesn't matter what someone else say. There's no friend of mine that's going to try to get me to do something that's going to destroy my life. What type of friend is that? What type of friend is that? I know, I get it. There are circumstances in life beyond our control. You probably can't change the way things are, but you can change the way you look at things. And I believe that things turn out best for people who make the best of the way things turn out. So if there is anything holding you back, you tell whatever that is, that your time is now. You can't have my victory. You can't have my family. No more self-pity. You can't take my joy. My life belongs to me. Because your life does belong to you. Your choices, your thoughts. Pain is real, but so is hope. Please know that none of us can change anything that has already happened in our lives. None of us. It's already over. It's already over. So don't look behind you. We're not going that way. You're not going that way. But you can start right now and create a new story, and you get to determine how that story ends. I encourage each one of you guys, each one of you, to make the rest of your life the best of your life. So please return on Monday. Not only on Monday, but on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and every day after that. Every day after that, in the same condition you left. You have the power. The choice is yours. Major Johnny Polis.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the presentation of PROM. Please return on Monday. For the last 4 years, the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services and the Mississippi Highway Patrol have traveled the state and presented this program to thousands of students. As you see, it's a very powerful presentation, and there's a reason for that. But our mission tonight was to not only reach out to our students who will be attending PROM statewide, we also wanted to focus on sending a message to our parents. As you have heard and as you witnessed, there were a lot of powerful speakers on this stage. A lot of powerful speakers that are very passionate in getting a message to you. And not only to our students, again, our parents. Parents, we know this has been pretty tough on you to listen to tonight and to watch. But the reason why we felt compelled to bring this message to you live is Colonel Ginn mentioned it. Master Sergeant Elkins mentioned it. I'm going to mention it again just to make sure we know that we've done our job. Mississippi consistently ranks first or second in the nation in teenage driving fatalities. This is something we are very concerned about. Students, you need to be concerned about it. Parents, you definitely need to be concerned about this. Now, how do we bring the numbers down? It's going to take a joint effort. A joint effort for students. Just do the right thing. We know that you're going to be faced with decisions not only during the prom season, but every weekend. It could be every day. You're going to be faced with decisions that will not be popular with your friends. But I can assure you The decision you make that allows you to make it home safely will always be the right decision. Parents, as we all know, we have to have unpopular conversations and discussions with our teenagers. But a discussion or a conversation that you have with your teenager that allows them to arrive safely back to you will always be the right discussion. Dwight, it's a privilege and an honor to even be on the stage with him. There are a lot of people that are in his situation that look at things different. They could be bitter, frustrated, depressed, and not have the mission that Dwight has. And I think it's pretty obvious to see his passion. It's pretty obvious to see this has not slowed him down. His mission is to get out and talk to as many people as he can to tell his story, to prevent decisions being made that will cause people to lose their lives or be seriously injured in a crash. Parents, again, we understand. I'm a grandfather. We get so wrapped up as adults in everyday life just because of what we deal with in society. And we tend to forget things that matter. Sometimes we have to set our priorities. I have a story I tell that I have a friend that unfortunately his son was killed in a very tragic car crash. And every time I see him, we have a conversation. It's pretty tough for me to have this conversation with him. But he always mentions how back in the day, before the crash, he would get home from work and he would walk down the hall and he would look in his son's bedroom. And his son would always be laying on the bed or laying on the floor with headphones on, listening to music. Or he might be doing his homework. And he would just stick his head in and say, "Hey, everything good? Everything good? Doing your homework?" "Yes, sir." And that was basically the end of the conversation. Now, he will tell you that every day when he arrives home and he walks down that hall, he looks into an empty bedroom. And if he could go back in time, he would do things a lot different. But unfortunately for him, he doesn't get a second chance to do that. Do you remember, if you're a student or parents, when you got the key to your vehicle for the first time, started it up as a young teenager to drive? Do you remember that? Do you remember the freedom? Do you remember the independence? Those keys are very powerful, and they serve a very powerful purpose. I want to show you something that is very important to me, and it's a reality check for me. This is the last key that most people will ever use. It goes in, it rotates, and it locks the lock on your coffin. Now, we all know in life there are a lot of things we do not have control over, especially when it comes to using this key. But we want to tell you tonight that you will be faced with decisions that can prevent, if they're made in the right way, that can prevent you from using this key. It can prevent officers from having to go knock on these doors and to tell family members their loved one is not coming home. Again, students, we know we've laid a lot on you tonight. We want you to enjoy your prom. Here's what we also want you to do. We want you to stay around a little while. We want you to stay around down the road, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, to be able to discuss your prom and how good a time you had. Parents, we want the same for you. We want you to be able to talk about the excitement of watching your son or your daughter getting ready to go to the prom. I assure you we'll be out. Law enforcement will be ready to do our job to make sure the highways are safe, for safe travel for these students who will be attending prom. Thank you for joining us, and we're going to leave you with a question. Gentlemen, for those of you who will be buying or purchasing a tux, and ladies, for those of you who will be buying or purchasing the dress, our question is, how do you want to wear it?
Hit for my wins, I need my hands. It's like a spell, can play pretend. Ain't no defense, I get it in, I get it in, I get it in. Hit for my wins, I need my hands. It's like a spell. Hey, y'all wanna get out of here? I get it in, I get it in, I get it in. I miss my baby, so I hit them on the FaceTime. I need it all for them, so no, I cannot waste time. Facing these oceans, feel the water on my waistline. We trust the process and I only know it takes time. You can get it, got no worries, I'm gon' make mine. Going global, I'ma get it out the state lines. Paying taxes at a more than what you make now. Different bracket, eating off a different plate now. I need my